I'm Chris Unger. I'm in Hopkinton, Mass. And this is what it looks like here out in the boonies. We'll try it again. All right, Xan, you go.
Hi, I'm Xan Maddock-Mark, and I'm calling from Barrington, Rhode Island.
Hunter.
I'm Hunter Kuchenbaur. I'm also in Barrington, Rhode Island. I work at the library, so hence the professional backdrop.
We'll leave the last two guests. Sanjli, I'll go for you next.
My name is Sanjli Gidwaney, also from Massachusetts. Live in Brookline, Mass, not just outside of Boston. And I'm at home, got my little guy eating dinner and one's going to bed. So
how old is your little guy?
I have three. I have a 9, a 6, and a 3.5-year-old.
Oh, nice. That's a little different than me. I have a 30-year-old, a 26-year-old, and 24-year-old, and a 7-year-old grandson that lives with me.
Oh, wow. Your grandson's like older than my two boys.
That's
nice.
Well,
it goes fast.
No,
yeah.
It
goes really
you
fast.
don't need to make me feel old as it is.
Not at all. Experience. We call it experience.
Okay. All right, Minnah. Who are you? Where are you?
My name's Minnah. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. This is my living room. And I'm in 10th grade.
Okay. Where do you go to high school?
I go to Leesville Road High School. It's in North Raleigh, in North Carolina.
All right, Daniel. Last but not least.
Yeah, I am Daniel. I'm calling from New York, and I'm sitting in a room, hence the curtain.
Okay, that's great. Okay, well, so you guys are hopping on to this crazy podcast recording with me out in the woods in Hopkinton, Sanjli in Brookline, not too far from me, with one of her sons there. And Hunter, are you a senior, Hunter? Yeah, you're a senior at Barrington, Rhode Island High School. Xan, you're also a senior?
Yep.
All right. And they are producing this podcast series with another student, Jack Colton, who's done some wonderful video editing. Xan's created the website. Hunter has been doing a lot of the social media work and other things. But today's recording is about making a difference in the world. All right. And I heard, Minnah and Daniel, that you're trying to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep, it is correct.
Oh, well, good. All right. So, and Sanjli, I don't know if you want to, if you can, say a few words about your work and design for change and how I think, and you tell me I have it wrong, it's about empowering, inspiring, if not inspiring, or vice versa, to get students and in fact around the world, but for your particular part of the world, the United States, to do something to make a difference in the world. Is that true? Is that what it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Sanjli Gidwaney, and I have been heading the efforts around design for change in the U.S. for over 10 years now. And the program is really all about using design thinking as a framework to engage students in creating social change in their own direct schools and communities. So any type of project that they are passionate about and making a real difference in the world, not sometime in the future, but today and now, because we know that students are capable and have the potential, and we are just always extremely excited to sit back and watch what they do.
Yeah, it's not a small point. I know there's one of my favorite schools is out in Boise, Idaho, One Stone, and they also focus on making a difference in the world and using design thinking to do that. There's a favorite quote of mine, one of the students there that I remember and tell quite often is that, oh, why are you preparing me to be in the world when I want to be in the world right now? And so we're gonna go right into this. Minnah and Daniel, the focus is on you today, although I might ping Hunter and Xan at some point about this. But tell me, who wants to start off? What has been your experience in this effort, and what have you been up to?
Yeah, I can start. So I actually have been working with Design for Change since 5th grade. But in 8th grade, I did my 2 biggest projects, which the first one was based off of Syrian refugees. And so we completely cleaned, found, paid for, furnished an apartment for a Syrian refugee family that was coming to Raleigh. And then we also raised over $2,500 for them to find a vehicle of transportation or something like that. And my other project was the continuation of the reconciliation of George Taylor. George Taylor was a man who was lynched in this county, Wake County, for North Carolina. And in 2019, that was going to be his 100-year annual of his passing. So we decided that since nobody knew about George Taylor, we wanted to reconcile his lynching and share his story with many others. And because of this, we transcribed a speech that was made there. We saw the land, we shared people's story, and we also found soil from where he was lynched and donated it to the soil bank in Maryland, and we left it there for people to know more of his story. And through this Children's Summit, the first ever in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, and we got to see the Pope, and it was a wonderful experience.
Whoa, okay, so Rome, 5th grade to Rome. Daniel, how about you? And Hunter and Xan, I'm going to start fading in the background. You're going to have to take over, so get ready, okay? Because this is going to be, it's hard to shut me up, so that's going to be a thing for me. So, but Daniel, I'll lead it off to you, and then Hunter and Xan, I'm gonna fade in the background, and you got to take over. So, but Daniel, what about you? What's your experience in this project?
Well, my experience also started in 5th grade, where in my school, PS 135, we had like a flu virus going on. We wanted to make a change by helping students wash their hands without getting the flu virus during our time. We actually did surveys around the school to show how many people actually wash their hands, and like not a lot of people actually wash their hands. They actually wash it with water. We wanted to do a campaign to help stop the spread of germs, and we decided to make organic soaps that does not affect the environment and help students wash their hands properly and thoroughly. And through that campaign, we actually gained a lot of followers and influence, and we went to Taiwan as our first trip to help spread the idea of washing our hands. And then we went to Rome to spread it again, the summit. We went to spread it again. So more influencers would actually start washing their hands instead of washing it alone.
All right, this is where I stop talking. So Hunter and Xan, let's go.
You got it, Chris. So we already introduced ourselves. I'll kind of dive right into just some of the things we wanted to ask you guys. And just before I get into that, like Barrington, I like to call it traditional. After the experience of doing podcasting with Chris, we've learned that there are a lot of things that we never thought possible out there. So you guys should be really, really proud about what you're doing at such a young age, because all over the US, like kids like me, we couldn't even think that you guys are doing this for school. So props to you. But I wanted to ask both Minnah and Daniel, if you ever had one experience or one moment in school that truly inspired you to do what you did or learn more about something, and in that moment, did you say, this is a great way that education is being delivered to me? Or, maybe I'm thinking about education in a different way and I wish something was presented to me in a different manner. Hence the reason why you're at Design for Change. I know, big question, sorry.
No, I completely understand. I've actually had a lot of these different types of moments, but one that speaks to me the most is how in 8th grade, before I did either of these projects, we were talking to and working with a man named Joe Holt, who was the first Black man in Raleigh, North Carolina, who wanted to attend an all-white school simply because it was closer to him than the all-black school that he goes to. So for a very long time, he fought to be able to go to this white school. That's still a school in a high school in downtown Raleigh, but he kept getting denied. And this was just around the time of Brown versus Board of Education. And I sat down with him for an interview at the beginning of 8th grade, and he told us his story. And the whole time I was just very shocked to hear about everything that he had to endure, especially from such a young age. And especially because I'm a woman I'm not American, I'm Muslim, I'm not someone you see constantly walking down the street, but I still am a lot more than a brown person trying to attend a white school. I'm sorry, black person. And so this whole time I was thinking, it's relatively the same here, except everyone is racist to the point that it's not really said out loud. You can be racist towards someone without fully meaning to or fully even realizing it. And that story just really shocked me to my core, because I realized deep down I do have some Islamophobia thrown at me throughout my life. And because of this, I realized that we don't hear his stories in very many places. I went to a very culturally appropriate school in middle school. It was amazing. It helped me open my mindset so much. It was based off of schools that you have in like Poland that don't go strictly from the curriculum. And it helped really change perspective on everything that was happening. Coming from a school as amazing as the Explorer School from downtown Raleigh to a public high school that was near my house, I realized we have no opportunity. We have no opportunity to learn about other people's stories, to be able to share our own stories, to be able to work for those stories to happen. We can't make a change in places that are simply teaching you basic Spanish. And this education system just doesn't teach you as much as it should about the real world.
Yeah, definitely. And I can imagine that man telling you that story must have been, incredibly, inspiring for you to especially work on the Georgetown Remembrance Project. Daniel, the same question goes for you. Have you ever had one of those experiences?
Yeah, I have had those experiences, but my experience was with teachers, not, teaching us about real life situations going on in the world, like social issues. They usually just stick with academic learning, like, mathematics, science, ELA. They don't really teach about what the world is going on, like climate change, racial justice, etc. They usually usually avoid that topic. They don't go much into that.
I find it interesting how, from a traditional school perspective, that we mention, and even I mention to some of my friends all the time, like, when am I ever going to use this? Like, where's the real life application in what I'm doing on the day-to-day basis? And there's a strong perspective that, if you don't conform to the standard, you're not getting into that college, you're not getting that job. But even though you guys do it completely differently, you're still at an advantage compared to us. We are in absolute amazement of some of these stories and experiences that you have. So I just wanted to put it out there again, that this is kind of like a compare and contrast conversation, because you guys are just so far ahead in terms of being a revolutionary than we are.
Yeah. And, this has been kind of your experience since you guys both said 5th grade. But obviously, this pandemic has definitely changed a lot of things. So we're curious, what's been a struggle throughout this entire pandemic? What kind of difficulties have you guys faced in your education? And what are difficulties that, staff, students, fellow peers have also been experiencing?
I'd like to start by saying that ever since this pandemic, I fully understand it's been extremely hard for everyone. Nobody has been completely safe from this whole experience. But after hearing from all of my friends, some teachers, my mom, who's a preschool teacher through this whole experience, it's exhausting. People are overworking themselves. It's hard to stay so motivational when you're basically by yourself the whole time. Now more than ever, I'm losing motivation to do assignments because all I can think is this is going to be useless in my whole future. Like, in the long run, this just doesn't mean much. And it's hard to be able to keep yourself like focused on it, saying you need to do this. This is something you need to know about the real world and what you'll need to know for the future. But in the end, you know it's not. It's not something you really need to learn. Their teachers aren't really teaching you much about the real world. Basic necessities like American government, which doesn't fully matter at some point unless that's something you specifically want to do. So I know through all of this, everyone's overworking themselves for an accomplishment that nobody fully needs in their life.
Yeah, it's been, I want to echo a little bit about what Minnah is saying. Nobody has been immune from the challenges of this pandemic. And students, of course, have bared the brunt of it, as have teachers who are, a lot of the teachers in the Design for Change Network are challenged with teaching to standards when a lot of them actually do want to be teaching about topics around social justice and climate action, and building equity into their classrooms. And sometimes it's just not easy to do that because either they're not trained or they don't have the resources to do it. And we know that many of them are so deeply passionate about bringing topics like that into their classroom. And so it takes oftentimes a very special kind of teacher to kick things off. And I know that Minnah and Daniel have both benefited from having really great educators in their lives that have created space for that to happen.
I got a couple of questions, but Hunter, Xan, I don't know if you have a couple more, or should I plow in here and see what happens? All right, this is about the revolution. You guys are part of the revolution. Hunter, Xan, Minnah, Daniel, Sanjli, you've been working on it for a while. Here, I'm going to do a little. I want to do a little fun thing that I didn't think about. We're going to off the cuff right here. Ready? I'm going to give you a minute to think about this, and then the viewers can think about it. The listeners can think about this too. And then we're going to go around, and everybody's going to answer this. You ready for this? You get a minute to think about it. You're going to design a school, K through 12. What does it look like? What's happening? What's the point of the school? What's the design of the school? Just think about that for a second. Because right now, what I've heard Minnah say is, I'm doing all these assignments. I have no clue why I'm trying to do them. You know why you're trying to do it, Minnah, by the way? I'll go off my little tirade here. Because everybody told you got to take these classes. You need to get these credits. You need to graduate from high school. Why? Because you have to go to a good college. Why? Because then you can get a good job. Why? So then I can have a good career. It's a treadmill. It's an escalator. Has anybody asked Minnah what she really cares about, what she wants to do in the world? I don't know. Has anybody? The nice thing about it is Design for Change has asked Minnah, what is the change you want to make? How can we do this? You have people to support you starting at the grade of 5. But okay, I digress. I'll give you another 30 seconds. I want to know, and you only get 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes to describe your design. You are designing the K through 12 school that you want to have for other kids. Okay, let me spin the wheel. Who's gonna go first? All right, Minnah, I'm gonna have you go first. Tell me about your school.
If I were to design a school K through 12, I would want it to be more open to imagination for students, because I understand that with education systems nowadays, everyone has to kind of conform to whatever the school board wants or what their teachers want or what their parents want. So if I were to design a school, I would want children, or just people in general, to just want to discover themselves. I want them to be able to explore what they would want to do, what they would need to do, what they just simply like to do. I want people to have the opportunity to find the things that they love. And then as they grow up, I understand there's a lot of courses that would help for the real world, but there's also a lot that wouldn't. I want more classes that are based off of what's happening in the real world, what's happening now, what's happening in our schools, in our malls, on the streets, of the just random things that are happening in our current events. Because I find it a bit useless, not fully useless, depending on what job you want in the future, of course, but like I've seen so many people say we don't even know how to do our taxes yet, and yet we're learning about things that happened hundreds of years ago. So I just want people to be able to branch off and learn about things that really matter in today's society.
Let me ask you one other thing though. The student that's graduating from your school, graduating 12th grade, not that there should be grades, they're graduating, whatever that means, okay, at whatever age. What is the one most important thing you hope they're taking away from their experience within your school?
That they understand that whatever they want isn't necessarily what everyone else wants for them. Because I feel like everyone nowadays is looking for things to please others when they're just not understanding what they need to be able to please themselves.
Okay, let's go. I love it. I love it. Here you are, like, well, all right, okay, Minnah, let's start some school systems here. Let's get these schools up and around the country. Let's start in Raleigh. You start your own school. All right.
Thank you.
I love it. Well, okay, who's gonna go? Who wants to build on Minnah? Who's got a similar idea or something you want to go, Xan? Yeah, go.
Yeah. So on a similar note to Minnah, I think that the most important thing in a school, if I were to create it, is that people have choice. I had a teacher once tell me, freedom isn't, money. Freedom isn't all this stuff. Freedom is to have choice. And I think that students going into school that I create, I want them to feel like they have the choice. They're empowered to make choices and to make change. A lot of the way that we teach things now is kind of just like by the rule book. We teach them what we think that we have to teach them, but really I want people to leave a schooling system feeling like they're empowered to like make change. We want to teach kids how to be ready for the real world, but we also want to teach kids how to create the real world, because the kids that we're teaching, they're becoming the real world. We don't have to abide by the standards that the world have already created for us. We can create those new standards.
Wow. So what happens in the school, Xan? What does it look like? Give me a snapshot.
I mean, I think that we just have, an abundancy of different, interesting classes that kids can, find their interests, try different things, figure out what they like, have different, go into the world, try different projects, kind of like with Design for Change, innovate, do what they want, basically.
Cool. Who wants to build on Xan's? Oh, wait, Xan, before you're off the hook. The one thing that a student graduating from your school is coming away with what?
I think kind of like I mentioned, that they feel empowered to make change and to break barriers.
Okay, who wants to step in now? Daniel or Hunter?
You want me to take it?
You go for it.
Well, this isn't sponsored, by the way, so maybe I won't need 2 minutes, but I would do what Iowa Big is doing. They were my favorite throughout this whole process after what I heard from them. Basically, I understand an importance of key fundamentals of teaching K through 3, but at some point, student choice has to be ingrained. And I feel like it's a good term to say, let these students attack the world, let them go after the world they want to, but it's a lot easier to do that when it's focused around the community. At some point, at least 6th grade, you are taking whatever class you're taking and having immediate connections and applications to a position that you hold in your community, whether that's volunteering, whether you're working with an organization, or whether you're doing your own project that you solely want to do directly connected with whatever you're learning in class. I think that community connection is really, really important. I think that solidifies your standing and your position in the world a lot earlier. It causes you to be settled down. You don't need to be scrambling at age 18 or even in your early 20s to figure out what the heck you're doing with your life. And you get to discover yourself in that process.
Okay. And the one thing that you are coming away with, you graduate?
That those students knew they had the reins the whole time, that we were in their corner rather than them conforming to our boxing ring, and that it doesn't matter what anyone says or does to you. It was never about you. Don't take anything personally, because your mission is your mission, and we gave that to you.
Oh, okay, Daniel, are you ready?
Well, my school will be it's similar to what Minnah's idea is. It will also have like a lot of imaginative opportunities. My school would actually have teachers that would actually listen to the students' ideas and what they want to do to make a change in their community or globally. They would actually listen to the ideas, and they would actually incorporate it in their academics, let alone instead of just doing academics just like that. They would encourage them to make projects, doing hands-on, a lot of hands-on in order to accomplish like what their dream is and what they want to do.
Now, what are they coming away with?
They're coming away with unless you they're coming away. You can always achieve your dream unless you can't achieve your dream unless you put hard work and effort into it.
Sanjli, you're not off the hook.
I was hoping I wasn't. I mean, there's so many good ideas here, and I'm so proud and honored to be a fly on the wall and to hear what your wish, the wishes of this group are for better education, because I know that they are shared. For me, I want to change the idea of the borders and the boundaries of what school is in terms of blurring the lines of what is school. My school would travel everywhere and live in different communities, and the teachers and the idea of teachers would shift quite drastically in that there would be all kinds of teachers. There would be parents, there would be community leaders, there would be activists, there would be experts, there would be, and these wouldn't just be adults. These would be children teaching adults. These would be adults teaching children. There would all the boundaries of what we know and the stereotypes of that we place on these titles would completely change and shift and evolve into knowing that everyone can be a teacher and everyone can be a learner. Say hello. It's my oldest.
Hi. So I want to ask, do you guys have another 12 or 15 minutes to go? Sanjli, I'm not sure you can stay on, but everybody good for another 15 minutes? Because you guys are awesome. I want to catch this. Okay, I'm going to keep pushing. Are you ready? All right. Why did you guys mention classes? Like, what's with that?
For me, at least, I mentioned classes because something about my middle school that I will always like wish that I had throughout the rest of my life is the fact that we were almost never in our classrooms for the whole day. Most of the time we would be outside going in a park. We would walk to the nearest museum. We wouldn't be sitting down, which is something I've always taken with me. I love that. I don't like standing in one place for too long, whether it's literally or whether it's throughout my life. And I think that's something I'm always going to take with me throughout the rest of my life, to my nieces, to my friends, everything. I think just classrooms nowadays, it doesn't have anything that we feel the need to pay attention to. If you're sitting in one space for hours at a time, you can't think. It doesn't help you in the short term and the long term.
So go back to the question you said. Well, somebody said classes. I think someone said I would like different kind of classes. I kind of want to push this a little bit. Like, what? And so, Minnah, I also want to make a shout out. This is Explorus Middle School in Raleigh, North Carolina, right? So yeah. Yes, I know about Explorus, and that's another point, and people should look that up, and that's very cool, right? I like what they're doing a lot. So that's really great. But didn't you mention classes? I think you mentioned, Daniel, you mentioned classes. What's with the classes?
Yeah, I did say classes. I think, being in the education system I'm in, it's so hard to kind of break out of the idea of not having classes. But I think what I really mean is, whether it's, physical or mental, an area for collaboration. Because I think one of the most important parts of, any type of, work is making sure that you're getting the ideas and, the strengths from multiple people, and you're getting the experiences, you're getting information from different perspectives and everything. And I think that's just a really great thing about, a community.
Daniel, you mentioned classes.
I mentioned classes because classes are like technically like the best thing in my experience with school. Like I get to hang out with people I know. I get to, talk with my friends, stuff like that. I usually, in remote learning, I usually don't get to talk with any of my friends unless, I call them, because we wouldn't really have that same vibe with school, in-person school versus virtual learning. And I include, as I said, I include in classes. People could get along with each other and focus on like their ideas.
So it's not necessarily a class. It could be a project. It could be an endeavor. It could be something you're making or creating, right? It doesn't have to be a class. I just wanted to see. Hunter, classes, what's going on?
Yeah,
What do you got?
so, well, it's similar to Xan in the fact that that's all I've known. I've been doing 12 years of classes and classrooms, and I have a good amount of it my next 4 years. I mean, definitely not as much, a lot more opportunity, but it's in that I recognize why we haven't changed. Personally, Barrington, through my experience with this podcast, I've come to understand that I almost can't imagine a lot of these ideas because that's just what I've been conditioned to learn. And no wonder why these administrators haven't changed it. Despite me going up to my friends saying, we recognize this is worthless. But that whole fear mentality of if we were to change, it'd be so new that we would have no clue what we're doing. We can't do that to our youth kind of thing. That is the greatest threat to my town and traditional education. And I've realized that over time.
Well, the reality is, Hunter, if you don't take biology and physics and you don't take geometry, you're not going to make it in life. So I just want I want to be upfront about that, okay? Because you're really in a bad spot if you don't learn that stuff.
Yeah, I think Hunter raises a really good point. I was in a conversation just earlier today with a design expert. One of the skills that has been missing from our education system, and has always been historically missing, is knowing and being comfortable with ambiguity. And it's not even modeled, a skill that's modeled from the highest levels to the youngest levels. It's just, we're not comfortable with being uncomfortable anymore. And so this pandemic has pushed us to the brink of trying to figure out things that we have never really grappled with, or we should have been grappling with and never did. And so when we think about classrooms, I think about spaces of where ideas can exist and people can, as Daniel was saying, collaborate and live in ambiguity and work through that together. That doesn't have to be in four walls. I just think of it as movement throughout different spaces. We just really need to change our ideas about these labels that we put on things, and really rethink the skills that we are imparting on students, or the skills we think they don't have that they already do have and should actually be teaching us.
Let me ask this, just a couple more rounds. Hopefully you guys can hang in there. What is or should be the role and I'm going to say this word, and if you want to change the word, you can feel free to change the word, but I'm going to say, what is the role of the teacher?
When I think of the role of a teacher, all I could think is new information, however you may get that. Your teacher could be an article you found on the internet. Your teacher could be something your friend tells you about something going on in the real world. Your teacher is your parents. Anything that gives you new information, I think, is the role of the teacher. Whether it's good information, bad information, although how can we differentiate the two? All good news is just news.
Daniel, teacher, you like teachers?
Well, I mean, teachers are basically people that teach the young, and for them to have a better understanding of something. But what they should be is teachers should be teaching the students. They should be teaching them, but also agreeing with them or disagreeing with them on their ideas that they have inputted into the classroom.
Xan, teachers?
I think teachers play an integral role in creating a strong support system for developing minds. And, they provide the one part of the empowerment for these students, especially if students maybe are losing their way, or maybe they're a little bit confused, or they don't know exactly what direction they want to take it. I think it's great to have that perspective of someone possibly with their perspective, giving it to those students to help empower them and support them.
Hunter?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at changing the word. How about mentors? I feel like the word teacher has been packaged and delivered to us with a notion that they are for content purposes only, and that they are for new information only. Where is the social emotional support, the social emotional motivation? It's there within a lot of teachers, but when you look through a framework of common standards of education, though there's a much bigger lack of emotion compared to revolutionary schools. And in that emotional support, long-term or short-term, knowing that you're there for the student, I feel like that takes the shape more of a mentor than it does a teacher, because we have disrespectfully viewed teachers in the wrong way, as if they're only there for the classroom purpose and not the student.
Powerful. Okay, I know we got to wrap up here. Here we go. This is the last round. So part of this revolutionary network is around recognizing that we need a revolution. And in fact, there's a lot of educators around the country and around the world that recognize that there needs to be revolution in education. This is not a new thing. I'm not coming up with it for sure. In fact, I can harken back 100 years to John Dewey, who basically said, you know, we need a revolution. And here we are still needing a revolution. So, Design for Change and with Kiran Sethi and India and others in India and around the world, all over the world, people are recognizing the need for a revolution, and they're starting in pockets and places and spaces to support a revolution, either in single schools, single classrooms, in programs like what Sanjli's running in Design for Change. It's her way to infiltrate the system, if you don't mind my saying that, to create an opportunity for youth to be immersed in the real world, to have the opportunity to discover what they can do and what power they can have. And this is a very, very big point. But there's a bunch of people out there are freaking out, like, okay, if the kid doesn't know geometry, they don't know how they don't know the World War II and what happened, if they don't know the X, Y, and Z. So there's this plethora of content that everybody feels that kids have to have, and not only that, they say there's these particular skills that kids need to have, and therefore they're at a deficit. So we need to fix the kids because they don't have these skill sets. Okay, so we're going to upset the paradigm. The paradigm that you guys have just shared in your design of your own schools is completely flipped. You're saying this is not about delivering and feeding in the content or the skills to these kids who are have deficits, but it's like, how do I see this person as having an opportunity to realize who they are, how they want to engage in the world, how they might want to make a difference in the world, how they might want to create something in the world, make something in the world, and decide how they want to make a difference, how they want to live, and what they want to pursue, what passions and interests they want to pursue, all of that. Okay, so here's the thing, the last crack, and then we'll call it a night. You get 45 seconds to make an argument that, in fact, the right thing to do is to flip this paradigm right now. Because what?
Yeah. Well, I think that we should shift this paradigm, because I, in fact, had 2 of those teachers through my life in middle school who I still keep in contact with now. And I know if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have realized and experienced all the things about myself and about the world that I have. And they helped me open my eyes to the world around me, to the people around me, to the experiences that I can go through or hope to go through or just let pass me by. They helped me realize my place in my life and in others' lives. And I feel like we need more teachers like these, because if everyone knows that the opportunity they have is endless if they really put their mind to it, then everyone would want the opportunity to help change the world.
I would add, and if you want to disagree, then you can disagree with me. I would add that they changed how you think about what you can do, who you can be, how you can create your own destiny. They
did help me realize that about myself so much. One of the teachers especially, I would simply go up to her and say, hi, like, I got this interview with someone who I'm very excited about, and she would look at me and tell me, you're really amazing at what you do, and in the future you could have any job that you want if you just work for it. And that really helped the way that I look at everyone, including myself, in the way that if you just put your mind to it, and if you have enough effort in your body left for it, you could do anything that you wanted.
I'm going to keep going the usual circle. Xan, I'm going to go up to you.
I don't know if this completely answers your question, but I just want to say that I think those things that you mentioned, learning about World War II or learning about random geometry facts, I don't think that it's the most important that we completely get rid of it, because I know that there are kids who are interested in it. It's mostly the fact that we have to change the way we're teaching it, because we teach it, emotionless. We teach it, without any I don't know, bearing in today's society or, any interest. But I think if we change the mindset around how those topics are viewed, then kids would really start to understand, what they actually are interested in. Because right now we're faced with, topics that could be interesting. You go into biology class and you're like, wow, like I do like life, I like ecology. But then they teach it and you're sitting in the classroom for an hour. And that's not the way we should be teaching it, because I bet there's so many kids who are interested in so many, topics within it, but they aren't being taught it the right way. And I think that's why we have to shift the paradigm.
First of all, I don't think people are going to bite at ideas. That's just how the world works. They're going to bite at research findings and studies that you do showing that your youth are better off being revolutionary and in a different kind of system. But my argument would be, when these kids, when the youth have to take your position of governance, your position of leadership, and your position of oversight, do you want them to know how a 30, 60, 90 triangle works? Do you want them to know the difference between a linear function and a quadratic function? Or do you want them to know how to solve communal problems? Do you want them to know how to work with other people? Do you want them to know how to change something for the better for the world? It's your decision, but it's pretty obvious when you put it that way.
Daniel?
I think we should shift this paradigm, because not all adults really know about changing the world. They always think about regular school grades, like geometry, etc. They're always concerned about the child's grades on the subjects. Like, they're always concerned about that instead of community problems and global problems. They're usually do not like to help with the child's ideas in changing the world, and they need to start understanding that not you can't just be learning regular school stuff. You got to learn about community problems as well.
Sanjli?
I value so much all these great ideas that you've shared. I have a slightly different take on things, because I think that there is a world in which all these skills can exist in harmony, and learning of these skills, if they are done in a context that is truly and meaningfully engaging to students. If it's done in a way where a student is deeply passionate about learning about quadratics or whatever it may be in ecology, it could be done in a way that allows for students to pursue their passions, know who they are in context of the world, and then have the skills to follow up and do those community problems, solve those community challenges of our world, and learn those great important leadership skills, 21st century skills, design thinking skills. I think there's a place for all of it. But we have to start with understanding what students want. I don't think we're asking them enough questions. And then in structuring education around making school a really meaningful place where you can actually make meaning about the things that you care about, and put it into context and application. And so, I think there's no right answer, but I think we are heading down a new trajectory when we think about education. At least I hope we are. And I think there's enough student revolutionary leaders that are going to take us there.
Well, I'm going to add my little 2 cents, try to do it quickly here. But yes, I think that's where my colleague Jim McHugh and myself and others, and we're going to try to get some students involved, is to think about more of these conversations in series 3, where we're going to have students leading a podcast on what the revolution looks like and what students are gaining from these other schools and these revolutionary schools, as Hunter refers to them, and what's being gained of it. And then also I even talk with maybe the adults about how they design them, but have it come from a student focus, a student-centered or learner-centered. I don't want to say student, I want to say learner-centered position. I would add my 2 cents here is that the thing that is really, really important is each of you have touched on in your own way, is the sense of your own personal agency, your own sense of possibility. The fact you can decide like, oh, I have choices I can make. There are things I can do. There are things I can create. There are things that I can make a difference in. But that sense of agency of like who I am, we don't even talk about that in schools. Who are you, right? I think the greatest gift a teacher or a mentor can do, or I would say a mentor, I like what Hunter is saying, is to pay attention to the person. Who is this person? What are they interested in? What do they like doing? What would they like to do? How can I afford them that experience? What circumstances can I put them in to explore that, to try that out? How do I help them think about those experiences? How do I open up the windows to other experiences or other things, right? And so it's a guide. You're mentoring them and coming to understand like what they're interested in and how they can pursue that interest, and begin to also think about their own identity. Well, who am I? What do I love? What do I like to do? What do I want to do? How do I want to spend my time? It's not just about having a career. Maybe it's about making things that I really want to make, or creating things I really want to create. Maybe there's things I want to do and make a difference for others in different communities. Then empowerment is so important. It reminds me, and I'll leave it with this. I just tweeted out a couple weeks ago that was my birthday, my 61st birthday, which is kind of scary, but anyway. And I made several other people on this podcast have made the reference, including Kath Fraze and others. And I think who was it? It was actually Syrian Sethi. It said the most powerful thing you can do is give attention to the individual child and to notice and to embrace and to encourage and to support and give them everything they can to grow. I use the metaphor of shining a sunlight on someone and creating them the soil to allow that person to grow. And I was saying that my mother lives with me, so I have 4 generations in the house: myself, my mother, my oldest daughter, and my grandson, besides the 3 dogs, the cat and the 2 lizards. And my mother told me 2 things as I was growing up. One is you are remarkable and amazing. And the other is you can do whatever you want to do. And I think if we gave that to every single person, and we were able to create a space where they could thrive and find out and explore and figure out what they love to do and what they want to do and how they can and think about the lives they want to live, that you can't do any better than that. And how can we give back to humanity so everybody can live the lives they want to live? So anyway, I want to thank you, Minnah. You were awesome, super awesome. Daniel, Sanjli, Hunter, Xan. We're going to continue with the revolutionary 2nd series, but we're going to be looking and coming soon the 3rd series that are going to be completely student run, with students having conversations about what they want out of their schooling and what's happening in these revolutionary schools, so that educators around the world can say, wow, you know what? We need to be doing more of this because the impact on youth is absolutely amazing. We can't miss this chance to change the world. Thank you, everybody.